All right, my friends, J.R. Dukes, back again with the J.R. Dukes Show, and we are talking about the Kim Potter case. I just watched the local and national news broadcast, and if you haven't heard, unfortunately, she has been found guilty on all charges by a jury of her peers. I believe it was 6 men and 6 women. It was divided evenly down the middle. This is kind of a stunning verdict. I don't think most people expected for this to be returned with a guilty verdict. I think most people expected at least a hung jury. I'm kind of shocked by it, to be perfectly honest with you. I'll have a lot more to say about it in the days and weeks to come. There's a lot to talk about here, but basically the jury has found her guilty of 2 specific charges. On count 1, they found her guilty and they allegedly proved that she acted recklessly. Now, I want to make sure you understand what that means. Under the law, to act recklessly means that they had to prove that she essentially intended to kill Mr. Wright. I don't know how in the world the jury thought that that was an appropriate conclusion. That's the reason why the court allowed a lesser included charge on the second charge, which basically they have to prove what's called culpable negligence. And basically culpable negligence means that you acted in such a way to where you are responsible to some degree for Mr. Wright's death. I could not disagree with this verdict any stronger. And trust me, I'm not necessarily the biggest advocate for the police. I'm not an anti-police person. I definitely think there's a lot of room for improvement with the police. Those of you who have followed my channel and have followed the videos that I have made understand that my goal is to educate you as to exactly how our system of justice works and how to handle yourself when you're interacting with the police, when you're interacting with the courts, and what the dangers are, and basically how to make sure you and your family are protected. I would also, to a little bit of a lesser degree, but it's definitely a goal of mine, to bring about change one day. But I'm a realist, and right now I want to help protect you and your family. And there's a lot we can learn from this particular case. Basically, you have a good police officer. She has been a police officer, I believe it was for 26 years. She's a 49-year-old woman. And now because of an accidental shooting in which the suspect was disregarding orders to obey, and they were trying to arrest him, he ran back into his car and tried to drive away. And as a matter of fact, after he was shot, he still drove away. Now, listen, I want to also be clear. I'm not saying that Ms. Potter should not face some kind of penalty. Clearly, she made a grave error, an error that, as far as your job is concerned, is unforgivable. She deserved to lose her job. I know that she resigned, and if she did not resign, she had to be fired. There's no two ways about that. You can't allow someone to make that type of mistake and they just go back to work like nothing happened. She deserved to lose her job. Now it becomes a question as to whether or not there's criminal and or civil liability. Again, clearly there is civil liability because she harmed another person, what we call under the law a tort. Having said this, I do not see this rising to the level of a crime. If I was a police officer, I would really have to be rethinking my job, because if a mistake happens, you accidentally hurt somebody, you're going to maybe spend a long tenure in jail. And to me, that's just absolutely unacceptable. She did nothing, in my opinion, that would warrant her going to jail for up to 15 years. And that reminds me, the first count generally brings a charge of 7 years, and the second count is 4 years. The prosecutors are trying to basically, they've applied to the courts, what I should say, and they're trying to have this woman serve the maximum, which is 15 years in this particular case. I'll have a lot more to say about prosecutors and, in my opinion, the unethical way that they operate and the things that you need to look out for yourself and your family if you're ever caught up in the system. Trust me, that's not a place you want to be. These prosecutors purposely charge her charged her in such a way as to basically gun for her, trying to give her a 15-year sentence. I just think that that's just absolutely ridiculous. This woman has no criminal record. She's been a loyal, good police officer. I don't even think she ever had a complaint taken against her by a citizen of the public. She was working as a teacher. She was teaching the other officer, Officer Lovely, that was with her. She just simply made a mistake, and now she's probably going to spend 15 years in prison. She's 49 years old now. That means she will not get out until she's 64 years of age. To me, I just find this unacceptable. Interestingly, we're going to talk about this again in another video, but when you look at make sure I get his name right this time, the Andrew Brown Jr. case that happened earlier this year, I believe it was April 21st of 2021, the police officers fired at a vehicle that he was in that was slowly pulling away from where the police officers were. The guy was slowly driving away, and then they opened fire, and the kill shot was right in the back of his neck. And the prosecutor of that particular town in Morgantown, North Carolina, said he would not charge the officers because when you're in a moving vehicle, that constitutes possession of a deadly weapon. And the prosecutor went on to say he didn't care if it's moving forward, backwards, sideways. If you're in a vehicle, you're in a deadly weapon, and that the officers were justified in killing him. Again, another outrage. So here's the bottom line. We need to look at this case. We need to pray for Officer Potter and her family. I truly hope the right thing is done here, but it looks really bleak for her at this time. She will probably be 64 years of age before she walks again as a free woman, which, in my opinion, is a travesty of justice. But it is what it is, my friends. All we can do is pray. We can try to change the system that we currently have, and we can try to learn lessons for ourselves so that we don't get caught up in a situation like this, because that would not be a place that you want to be. At any rate, I just wanted to bring this to your attention and let you know again that unfortunately 49-year-old former police officer Kim Potter found guilty by a jury on all charges. She faces up to 15 years in prison if they are able to prove what they call Blakely factors, which will allow for what they call an upward departure from the standard 7 plus 4 year sentence. So we'll see what happens, and I'll have more to say about this at a later date, like I said. By the way, if you like this type of commentary, if you like to learn about how our system of justice works, and you like to learn things that you're not going to really learn in a book or learn from anywhere else, you need to take a moment and follow my channel, like this video. That way you're informed every time I put another video up. If you need me, you can always reach me by dropping me an email, which is simply at reachjrdukes@gmail.com, and I'll get right back with you. I do appreciate you joining me today, my friends, and as always, I am JR Dukes.